Well, it's 4 o'clock. We will get started. I'm sure people will kind of trickle in. So we'll do kind of a sort of slow roll to give people a little bit of time to trickle in here. Um, but this is called Build Your Own High School AI, and I put into the chat a link to a folder, and so a folder of all the things that we're going to be using. And ultimately, this is kind of your folder to keep and take. And the hope is that you leave with a somewhat developed AI course, and we're going to build it ourselves here in 1 hour. That's the goal. So as a couple more people are grouping in here, once again, pasting the link to the folder in the chat. So this is your opportunity to leave if you don't want to work. You won't hurt my feelings, but we're going to work here. The expectation is that people try their best and work. But the benefit of this is that when we'll all have a takeaway. I actually did this presentation yesterday, and I can give you access to yesterday's folder too, because we also created not all of it, but a good portion of a course in an hour. So it was pretty fun. All right. So a little bit about who we are here. So my name's Andrew Wheatley. I'm the director of secondary curriculum at Lakota Schools. We're a school district just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, about 18,000 students. So I oversee all things teaching and learning curriculum type of stuff. And just a little bit kind of my world of AI is just in somebody who's interested in it and thinks that it has the potential to, impact students' lives and in our lives. And so I've kind of just invested in the research just through some being at the right place at the right time. Was part of Ohio's Innovate Ohio AI for Schools Task Force. And there's a picture of me presenting with the Lieutenant Governor as we launched a toolkit for the state of Ohio for AI. It's just a project that, like I said, I was lucky to be a part of. Then with me, I have Krista from our same district. Krista, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Krista Heidenreich. I am the Director of Professional Learning in Lakota Local Schools. For the last 10 years, I also had the role of Director of Digital Learning, which kind of pulls me into the AI piece. I'm also doing some work with the computer science curriculum for our district. So that's where I am.
Yeah, also, Lisa was talking about privacy. I think Krista, expert on privacy. Whether it's been willing or not, you're forced into it or not, definitely an expert on it. So if you don't mind, in the chat there, if you just say a little bit about who you are and your familiarity specifically with using AI to create like lessons or curriculum. It could really be like either or. So we'll let people chime in here. Awesome. So it sounds like we got some people who have some familiarity. Just getting started is awesome too. Hopefully we'll all learn. I learned a lot yesterday from the people attending. And I know some people really said that they learned a lot too. So this is really good. I like that. That's a way to do two things. Use your lunch break effectively there. That's way more productive than me. So a little bit about what to expect. Like I said, this is an interactive session. You're kind of expected to work and collaborate. We have a good amount of people. I think we'll actually kind of just work together as one giant team. But we were going to build a high school introductory AI course from scratch. I've created one small part of it, and then we're going to try to create the rest of it. We're going to break it into 3 parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about high school AI curriculum, though you might know more than me. So we'll see. We're going to do some course building, and then we're going to bring it all together. So I just want to start off just a little bit of the landscape here. And if you don't mind, in chat, if there is something that you are aware of that is not listed here that you really love, feel free to put in here. But what I wanted to provide is actually like high school AI courses, like full curriculums. And at least from my limited research, I have not found a ton of things. I definitely have found some computer science-based courses. Code High School has one. And then there's some stuff from code.org. Code.org has actually got a fair amount of various lessons and things like that. It's pretty good stuff. And then there's some non-computer science-based resources from Day of AI, IBM Skills Build. If anybody's used that, they have some nice fundamental programs. They have like a nice cybersecurity fundamentals and AI fundamentals that you can get a badge from. That's a good question. It could be either machine learning or generative AI, either one. It seems like most stuff's focused on generative AI, and that's a good point to make, kind of the differentiation between those two. And then code.org has some stuff that's not specifically computer science based also. So if you got anything, feel free to link it in the chat, and then we'll add it to the slideshow that so people can have access to it. But we are mostly going to focus on generative AI today. So here's the deal. So our high school, or well, we have two high schools actually. We are launching an AI course next year. So we will have students, they have signed up for it. Yeah, put in AI EDU. That's actually who was in that picture at the beginning. It was Alex from AI EDU was in that picture there. I probably should have put his resources in there. So yeah, thanks for that. So we are launching an AI course next year. We have students registered for this course. And we are the type of people in Lakota where we, like to say yes, and then sometimes we'll figure it out later. And the way, as a curriculum director, that I figured we could scale an AI course fast is by essentially making it a social studies course. And I've had a lot of people are like, why a social studies course? It doesn't seem to make sense. Because when you start with an introduction to AI course, most of the introductory topics are social studies topics, right? Ethics, law, maybe it might be intellectual property or copyright type of things, how it impacts the economy, how it impacts workforce. That sounds like a social studies class. And not only that, but I don't know about you, but there's not a lot of AI experts in which I can hire to teach a machine learning based course or a technical based course. There's just not a lot of folks to do that. And there's not a lot of pre-developed curriculum. But we can build a social studies course pretty fast. And I can hire a social studies teacher or use an existing social studies teacher. I can align it to some things. And for those people who are in the world of mine, where you have to make sure that licensures match up to course codes and all that type of stuff. Social studies will allow us to go fast and get something and get kids doing something right away. And so I went ahead and kind of built an outline for a social studies course. So if you click on this link right here, it will take you to the outline that I've already built. And so we're going to use this outline as kind of the foundation for this thing that we're going to make. So these are the different units. It's a 1 semester course. It's an introductory course. And students are going to learn about these topics. You can read them there. You have access to this. You can use this as you want. Maybe you like the topics, maybe you don't. But that's what we're going to use for our foundation here. So as I said, it's easy to start, easy to scale, and it meets a diverse group of students. Here's one other thing, too, to think about is we have a fair amount of tech courses at our school. And if I were to add one more tech course, I would have just kind of diluted the group of techie kids who want to take tech courses. So by pushing it into social studies, I felt like I could get a more diverse group of kids learning about AI than if I made it a techie course. So just something to think about too, right? I actually have interest in making a language arts based AI course in the future to once again kind of grab a different group of students to kind of get them into the AI world. So the how is that we're going to use some sort of large language model, right? ChatGPT or Gemini to create some lessons and resources to fill in this course. That's what we're going to do here today. All right. So a little bit on the process that we're going to about to embark on is I have this Google Doc right here. If you click on this link, like I said, everybody should have access to the slides. This will take you kind of to what we're going to build out. So I already showed you the course outline. And then what we're going to do is for each unit, the 6 units down here, we want to have learning objectives. Krista's going to build the current events activity, so don't worry about that. We'll place that in there later. But what you're going to do is you're going to create learning objectives, lessons, and a performance-based assessment for every unit. So each of the people in this room will kind of get assigned to one of those units. And you're going to use either Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever you want to use to start building those things. So it's going to be some rapid collaboration amongst the people in this room. And the biggest thing I tell you is don't let perfection get in the way of good. Like, it's not going to be perfect. We're not going to have the full amount of time to edit it and all those things, but we're going to get some good stuff out of this that we can start using. So don't let perfection get in. So Chris is going to take over here. She's going to talk a little bit about using prompts effectively. because if you haven't done curriculum development, you need to work with the AI to make sure it gives you what you want. I think most people probably are somewhat familiar with that, but Chris is going to take over, and she's going to screen share. I'll just cover a couple things. These are just some examples of some prompts that I used, and then oh, Krista, you're already in there. All right, perfect, right?
Yep, I'm in there. Yep.
There you go.
Do you want to say anything
Take it
about the
away.
ones are you sure you don't
Nope.
want to say anything about the ones you put on there?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
just examples, so you can kind of move down to your part.
Okay. All right. So just because you're going to have this for future reference, as Andrew said, there are some examples in here of prompt writing. One of the things, I am by no means an AI expert, but one of the things that I do find is that I use it daily, many times more than once. And then I also have learned the power of prompt writing. So just we're going to walk through some steps of how to get what you want out of AI, especially with this specific task in mind. So as Andrew said, it doesn't matter what AI tool you're using, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever you prefer. I actually have ChatGPT-4. I'm an ISTE certified teacher, and I'm part of a pilot group that they allowed us to have it. Oh, did I see that? All right. So the first thing that you want to think about is being very detailed. So don't be afraid to continue a conversation within your chat for whatever it is that you're looking for. You can talk to you can talk to ChatGPT or any of the others as though it's a person. I don't tend to do that yet. I don't know. I'm just not there. I still just give commands, but I mean, you can obviously act like it's a person if you want to, and it makes it a little more personal, but don't be afraid to get as detailed as you can at whatever you know about what you need, put it in there. You can also ask it to make commands after. So if you want to elaborate on something or have it change levels in something, and then also create complementary tools or like rubrics, charts, pictures, resources that go along with what it created. So there's a lot of potential here for instructional use, definitely, which is what we're going to focus on today. So what we're going to do is I am going to jump out of here and actually go into, as soon as I move this little toolbar, I am going to go into ChatGPT, and I'm going to show you, if I just type in, and I know some of you are probably way better at this than I am, so please feel free to unmute and give me better ideas, or we're just going to walk you through. So the first thing I'm going to do is just basically say, create a template. I was typing on the keyboard that I had to disconnect for my Zoom to work. For a current events activity for a social studies class. So as Andrew said, we're going to take on the part of a template where there is one current events activities per unit to go along with this course. So that's what we're trying to get ChatGPT to do right now. So if I type that in just that basic statement, I'm going to show you what I get. And it looks like Lisa, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you give it a role and tell it who it is, it'll make it better. So like you're an expert teacher with, knowledge of like 11th and 12th grade history pedagogy. It'll focus what it's doing in its tone.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a minute. I'll show you how. So this was just a very basic search to show you where it starts. So you can see with that request, it's given us a template for social studies. We've got the materials needed. It looks like a very typical lesson plan. It's got a 10-minute introduction, a 15-minute choose your event, 30-minute research, 45-minute presentation. And so what you immediately notice on this as a high school teacher, you're going to think like, yeah, I don't have all day to do this. So in the next one, what I'm going to do is show you, I'm not going to do it each time, but I'm going to show you where I took that prompt and then I turned it into, I'm a curriculum director in a public school district. So like giving it the role, I'm designing a current events course that introduces students to artificial intelligence. I'd like the students to participate in a current events activity for each unit covered, create a template for the current event activity. And you can see how it goes in and it gives you a little more detail than the first prompt did. And then if you go along, and it also added assessment criteria, which was not on the first prompt. But then if I say, please adjust the activity to fit into 2 40-minute class periods, this just shows you how you can have the conversation and continue to build. Then you'll see that it still gives you the objective, the materials needed, but you can see how you have a day 1 and a day 2. And then if you go in, and I actually, Andrew, surprise, I went in and said for it to align the activity to 11th and 12th grade Ohio Social Studies standards, just to show you that this is another way. And so if you look there, it took all the standards addressed, and then it took that same day 1, day 2 activity, and it tweaked so that it could relate to the standards. And I know I'm going quickly through these, so if you have questions, raise your hand. Or, but we just want to show you how the more words you put in and the more information you give, the better product you're going to get. And then we moved into, please create a teacher guide for this activity. And so think about taking that. It took the activity that's still in that same chat, and then it basically mapped it out, showing the teacher what you need to do to prepare for this. What does it look like on day 1? So introducing the activity, and it tells the teacher what they need to do. So that's really helpful too, as you're creating curriculum. And then what I'll do now is I will ask it to, I keep wanting to use that keyboard, create student directions for this activity. And so if we put that one in there, you'll see how quickly it still builds on all the information that I had previously put in. So you don't have to go back and rewrite everything, but it will put in. And so those are the pieces that in order to build this curriculum, you're going to need. Obviously the template, you want a full lesson plan, but the teacher facing and the student facing is what's going to really fulfill that package for you. And so you can see there, it's giving the students all the directions that they need. So that's super helpful for the teacher to have that in front of them and the students to have it in front of them as well. Andrew, is there anything you wanted to add to that or elaborate on?
No, I think that's perfect. So here's what we'll do. We'll start getting to actually doing some of this work, and we'll kind of assign people a different task. And we'll all stay in the same kind of chat here. So I'm going to go back to the presentation, share my screen here. All right, share. And then thanks for the input from everybody, because I added the giving it a role provides better responses and also be nice. So thank you for sharing that. Both Krista and Lisa for that. And yeah, the information from, I think it was Katie, that she says that if you're nice to it, I've heard this before, like it actually gives you better responses if you're nice to it, or when you give it rewards, which I find just fascinating. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know if that scares me or I don't know,
Right?
but it's wild. So here we go. So Krista, her task is going to be the current events template, because she's not exactly done yet. She's going to take what she's working on and put it into that template. And I think she's going to create a rubric for it too. So she can work on that. But we're going to assign people here. So Lisa, if you want to do unit 1, and then we'll have Nancy, if you do unit 2, we can get this in the chat too, if I can pull it up. Then we'll have Katie, if you do unit 3, and I'll work on unit 4, and then we'll have a couple units left, and we can pull from another one from the last group that did it. And same with the final assessment. We'll just not do those, but it's no big deal. So if everybody wants to jump into the unit I kind of told them to work on, and you're going to use whatever your favorite tool is and start with the learning objectives. You can choose how many learning objectives you want. I can tell you that it usually writes too many, and then I have to get it to whittle down a little bit and then start creating some lessons for it.
Really
so I'm just going to, yeah, go for it, Lisa.
Like my unit says 2 weeks. How many class periods are we thinking about? Are we dividing it by like 40-minute class periods, 5 periods a day? So 10?
Basically, yeah, 45-minute, hour long, whatever, 45-minute long class periods, 5 a week. Yeah.
Okay. So 10-ish for 2 weeks.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. And so what I say, I was doing unit 4, as I always said. So, all right. And feel free to chat if you want to while you're doing it. If you want to just talk out loud, or if you got questions.
I guess I'm wondering if we are going to use like a certain framework, like are we going to use
So if you click
UDL
on
or Harvard's thinking routines, or what we learned in our keynote today about retrieval practice. Like, are there certain things you want us to include?
I want you to do it the way you want to do it. Because I think there's some value in the diversity of not everybody doing it the same way. So for example, I think it'd be really, really interesting if you asked it to create all the lessons and you built in some retrieval practice stuff in it, right? Like that would be really, really cool. So if there's something that you want to do, I'm empowering you to do that for sure. All right. Original photo.
Are we supposed to use the current events lesson template? It says use template.
We'll post that in there later. So just go ahead and work on the objectives and the lessons for the class.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good question. I always love when you tell it something like this is a 3-week unit and then it gives 1 week for all 5 learning objectives. Um, that's the fun stuff it likes to do sometimes, right? So I got a kind of a question for the group as everybody's working. It sounds like everybody's in here. So has anybody used like what is it, the Magic School AI and stuff like that? Because that's one of the things that ended up being brought up in the last session is people were talking about how the value of then like finding a video that's related to these things and then having Magic School do like creation um creating questions based on the videos and stuff like that. Does anybody have any experience doing that?
I do, and that's
do
what
too.
I'm using for my unit plan generator and my lesson plan generator.
Okay.
Because it
Instead
has
of
like a built-in like generator for that. So instead of using
Mhm.
just a general chat
Yeah.
bot, I'm using the lesson plan generator, and then it has like common misconceptions, like explanation generators. It has like you can actually create your own academic text. You can take a video and make questions based on that. So there's a lot there that I think could build things out academically really nicely. So
Okay. Do you have a paid account then?
I'm a pioneer and a trainer, so I have an
Cool.
enterprise account that's free through
Yeah.
July. But yes, we're considering doing a paid account, but it's free. You just have a limited amount of exports or like um amount of times you can ask it. But I have yet to find one of my teachers hit that limit. So I'm not sure what that limit is, but there is a limit.
I
So
like Magic School AI for when I'm just introducing AI, because for some teachers, prompting can be very overwhelming. And until they learn how to craft a really detailed prompt, I think Magic School takes a lot of that guesswork out for them, and so they do appreciate it. I'd like to teach them how to prompt first and make them spend some time in there first. But then when they see Magic School or School AI or EduAid or any of those, then they're like, okay. The thing is, I feel like chat still gives better outputs, but I think Magic School is very good. I also am a pioneer.
Nice. We got some advanced people in this presentation.
I would agree. I think the user interface is a little more teacher friendly in some of like the Magic schools. I think for teachers especially that haven't used AI a lot, it speaks their language.
Does anybody have any experience using Gemini instead, or like any of the other tools? Prefer one or the other? Prefer one over the other?
Gemini only became available in Canada on February the 8th.
Okay.
So we're pretty new with it. I did do some lateral investigation of it, and I gave it a role and I said, can you please create a 7-day meal plan for a vegan male who's trying to lose its weight, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And the first thing it said was, I am not a nutritional expert. So I thought that was funny because every other like Copilot played the role, chat played the role,
Yeah.
Perplexity played the role, but you know, Gemini
That's-
was like, no, actually, I'm not. So it was telling me the truth, but it didn't produce the output I wanted.
It's interesting.
But
So I was using it back before it was called Gemini.
yeah,
It wasn't that long ago, but to create scenarios. And I actually like the scenarios it created better than ChatGPT's. But for a lot of other types of prompts, I didn't like its responses as much. But for whatever reason, its scenarios seem to be way better. It was interesting because I was doing it for Chris, I was doing it for Mariah because we were trying to see if we could use it to create scenarios for the cybersecurity courses, and created a scenario where kids actually had to do like log analysis, and it was actually, and I asked it to even create um um logs that would look like what you'd see in like Wireshark, and did a surprisingly good job at it. It was really interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know we have a small group doing co-pilot right now. So our district is putting together, and Andrew's on this team, a task force to determine how we'll move forward in our district with AI. And so in addition to this course that Andrew's creating, we've also begun our plan to get our adults familiar with it. So co-pilot's going out to all of our central office staff and then into our administrators, and then we'll provide it for our teaching staff. We'll explore other options as well, but the goal is to give teaching staff something by the fall.
I just want to ask a quick question, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
This is amazing. I've never done anything like this, and I'm just wondering how in depth you want us to go. Like
It's completely up
I'm
to
learning
you.
okay, because I'm learning that
Yeah.
prompting is very critical. And
Yep.
so I realized that I forgot something and then go back, and now I'm looking at the activities that it gave, and I'm wondering, if I were doing this myself, I'd say for this case study analysis, can you give me some real world examples?
Yes, you're doing it right. So I was only laughing from the standpoint of like, yes, it is, I'm feeling the same way as you. Like this is I've never done this before. We're all just kind of trying to do something really fast. The whole point is that we're both learning and creating something of value, but not perfection. I also like the fact that we have different people with different levels, and also people using different tools, because that means that when you go back and look at what everybody else made, hopefully you learn something from everybody and their approach to it. So I think, Katie, you are in the right place, doing the right thing. So don't worry at all.
So
So I
maybe,
appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, so maybe give me I have 5 more minutes, and so I can think about what I want to
Yep.
continue.
I think we have about 5 more minutes, and then we'll kind of all regroup back together and kind of take a look about what we learned and see a little bit about what we created, because I'm not
Okay,
done.
fair
Like
enough. Thank you.
I'm not even halfway done with my unit, let alone like editing it and stuff like that. But I do know that like when I go back and start doing some of this work, some of this is I'm going to take some of the things I've learned from people and their approach to help tune some of this stuff up and see how I want to use it in the future and stuff like that. Right now, I'm seeing if I can get it to create 2 case studies. So we'll see what it cranks out here.
Perfect. Thank you.
My issue is trying to get the lovely table it creates to actually replicate somewhere else. It always messes up the formatting.
I've learned that we got some really smart people on this call, and I was almost afraid to ask if everybody for help on if they if people knew a better way to format this stuff than what I knew, because I struggle with the formatting. So if you got any tricks for formatting, please let me know.
One of the reasons I like Magic School and using like Microsoft Copilot is that you can like export or copy with the formatting it produces into another
Agreed.
document. So like
Agreed, Lisa.
we're a Microsoft school, and so I export things to Word documents and it keeps all the formatting. And so if I ask it to create a rubric, it keeps all the rubric formatting for me. And it also has a Google Docs export, which is helpful. I just copied and pasted into mine, and then spent the better part of the last 8 minutes trying to format it, and that was annoying. So I like the export feature a lot. Because yes, it gets annoying to try to copy and paste and then have to reformat everything. To get
It's-
it to not have that gray background, you have to right click and have it just insert text.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
just did it wrong. You can just see how I just did it wrong right there. Paste without formatting. There we go. But then you got to format. Yeah. So
Then you have to go back and
that's
format.
helpful. I mean, I think one of the things I've learned over the past couple of days, because I'm not a Magic School pioneer and have not, I just barely used it, is that some of just those pieces are almost worth its its cost. Um, so because right now the formatting is a little rough. But I did a quick brief look at these little case studies I asked it to make, and they probably need to be elaborated on a little bit more, which I probably will ask it to do in the future. But it's not a bad start, um, especially for an introductory course for kids to start learning about what this specific learning objective was. Um, Another question to the group before we kind of jump back, because I think we have about right now we're on about 19 minutes, and I'll let people keep working for a minute. For anybody who's using 4 right now, because actually I don't have 4 in this computer, I have 4 on my home computer. But was anybody using the connected to the internet functionality to like actually pull things from the internet as they do this?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And
I
was it
actually
helpful?
took your list of resources and I included that in my initial prompt with all of your links. And then I also asked it to use AI Edu. And so yeah, I had it pull that. I also asked it to use Harvard's thinking routines and include that in each lesson. And yeah, so it actually it it looks pretty good. And then it produced all of the links like Today of AI or to code.org, all of the resources that you had given at the beginning.
That is brilliant, Nancy. Thank you. I'm going to try to collect some of that. You will probably ask you to kind of highlight that again here in a little bit. I'll try to collect that a little bit, because that was really helpful. Part of the reason I wanted to just use a 3.5 is just for folks who don't have some of that access, but I'm glad for the folks who do, because I think we're learning a lot and some of the value of that too. Chris and I were talking about, if there was this, I was thinking there might be a good lesson in here too about generative AI around creating images and how misinformation could be used from like a geopolitical context. And so using the image generation, actually creating some images for this, thought would be kind of a cool way to do that too. All right. Well, we'll try to finish up here. We can kind of join back. I'll let you kind of finish up. We'll do a kind of a slow roll into getting back in the presentation. So I'm going to ask some questions just kind of about what we learned, what we're using. I want to be able to take some of those notes in here so we can kind of document that so people can take that with. And I can kind of screen share too, because I haven't had a chance to look at other people's sections. And from the sound of it, it sounds like everybody else's section is a lot better than my section. So, all right. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with Lisa, which one were you doing? Were you doing unit 1?
Yes, I was, and yeah, I'm not so sure how happy I am with it, and it's like in whatever, but
That's
I'm
fine.
trying.
So take us through here a little bit, unit 1. You don't have to walk us through everything.
That's not my unit 1.
Okay, just kidding.
Yeah, that looks right.
Thanks.
Well, so I went in and I had Magic School create like a unit plan, which I find to be actually really helpful. I like their unit plan template just to give me kind of an overview.
Mhm.
And so I had like day one, and then of course it always underestimates how long I think it will take things. So it had like history and evolution of AI as like day 1, and having the kids create like a timeline as their kind of main assessment component. I feel like that's like 2 days. So when we did the lesson plan, I kind of thought about it being over 2 days. And then, but it did come up with objectives for each of those kind of individual days or lessons or ideas. And so I pulled the objectives out of those. So I'd be able to look at the history and evolution, differentiating between types, being able to like apply it in the real world, and then kind of picking a project that will allow them to kind of apply their knowledge and then present that to each other as kind of a culminating activity. I liked the detail it gave me on like discussion points for the Turing tests and things like that, and some of these discussion questions. But I didn't like I want to go in and ask it to create an assignment for that detailed timeline,
Yeah.
and what that would look like, and then think about how much am I presenting versus how much is experiential and discussion based. I actually had Copilot. I asked Copilot kind of for the second day. I went back in and asked about days 3 and 4, and I actually like Copilot had them doing like their own kind of group research project around discussing AI terms, and then came back to try to figure out how to like create like a Venn diagram or something that would allow them to kind of display the ability to differentiate between the different parts. So I actually liked that idea better. It just was really short and I didn't get it transferred over.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's lots of detail. I think I need to go in and figure out what I want versus what I don't want, and then
Yeah.
what would need to be found versus not found. But
Yep.
I did like some of their suggestions too for like hosting a virtual panel discussion with industry professionals, organizing a mini AI fair,
Yeah.
having like talking about a documentary or some sort of reflective discussion on the impact of AI in society as kind of going forward.
Cool. So that was I took some of the notes in our presentation, just kind of some of the big picture talking points that you hit at. So that was perfect. Thank you so much. That was
Yeah.
incredible. Because the whole point was learning. Like we learned what it does well, we learned what it doesn't do well, we learned that certain tools did other things better, right? Like we had a lot of learning. Katie, you want to share just some takeaways from the part that you're working on?
Sure. Well, I feel like I'm just a very, very newbie at all of this.
That is fine. Which
And
one did you do?
I did unit 3,
Thank you.
and so I asked it to write objectives first, and it gave me like a million objectives. So I was like, can you truncate those a little bit? And so it still gave me some pretty detailed objectives, but I kept them. And then, like I said, I really, this helped me understand the importance of prompting, and I took notes on everything that everybody said, because that helps you really define your objectives, your teacher objectives, much better. It came out with several lectures on the lesson plan. So for week 2, I said, I actually don't want to lecture this week. Can you remove the lectures and create a new plan? And so it did that for me. And then again, I was just playing with it. And so then I said, can you put a think, pair, share into week 1? And so it put a think, pair, share in there. So I was literally playing with it since I've never done this before. And so for, let's see, in week 3, it asks for a scenario. So I asked it to create a scenario, but I asked it to create it at the 9th grade level, because I figured, the students, even if they're reading, even if they can understand, excuse me, at a high level, I don't want their fluency level to decrease their ability to discuss. So I wrote it at a 9th grade level, and it seems to be okay so far. And it gave all sorts of implications and solutions that the teachers could use to direct the discussion.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm happy with it so far, but it's
That's
definitely
good.
got a
The,
lot more work.
the whole point today was to learn, and that's awesome. And it sounds like you did. Nancy, so it was cool to hear from you. You kind of took some different approaches by being real specific about some kind of instructional approaches. So which one did you do? I forget, and I'll click
Number
on it.
2.
Number 2, awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you learned or what you tried.
Yeah, I tried to be specific. My prompt is right there, so you can see it. Detailed. Well, that's their response. I told it that it was an award-winning social studies teacher,
Nice.
that high school social studies teacher, that I really wanted to have engaging, hands-on lessons. I copied and pasted all of the resources you gave us at the beginning. I added Harvard's thinking routines. I asked it to put in some of those reflective practices that we learned about in the keynote today. And then if you scroll down, it gave me kind of a high level objective of day 1, like week 1, this is what it would
Okay.
look like. And it put in the links to all the resources, which is kind of nice. And then it does week 1, week 2, tells me which thinking routine I should use for which lesson. And then I made the mistake of saying, now do detailed lesson plans for each one, because there would be 15. And it kind of gets stuck after a while. So if you scroll down, it might do like the first 2. So then I switched my prompt to keep going down, I think.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
There we go.
So week 1, like, give me detailed lesson plans or teacher guides for each lesson. So because I had said so many of them, it kind of stops, and then you have to get it to regenerate. So then I switched my
Gotcha.
prompt to say, just do week 1, then do week 2, do week 3, so
Mhm.
that it isn't so confused. But again,
Gotcha.
you'll see that it does the think, pair, share. It tells you where to get your resources from, has case study analysis. Like you said, you can keep talking to it and tell it
Yeah.
what you want hands-on. And then I also asked it to create a choice board at the end
Oh, nice.
for
Choice.
demonstrating learning. So rather than me decide how the kids are going to demonstrate their learning, I asked it to create a choice board as an assessment. So I didn't get to the rubric part yet, but yeah,
Fine.
it's very fun. And yeah, it doesn't take too long. I mean, it takes long
Yeah.
to read through it, but it often has better ideas than I do. I find that especially for choice boards. I think that I have ideas and then it comes up with way better ones.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so you took a unique approach that I don't think the rest of us did, which is you fed it information first, right? Like You gave it some of
Yeah.
the other resources. I like that. That's something that I've heard people do before, but it just slipped my mind as something to do now. So I so much appreciate you sharing that with us. And it sounds like you'll be able to get better responses. Also, I like that, like the instructional framework. Krista, I was thinking about like doing this and building this with like Marzano's instructional framework or whatever instructional framework you want to use, like or a specific learning science, strategy. If you wanted to use like interleaving or whatever, right? So that's really cool to like feed it that information and say, make sure whatever you do, it's using these practices. Just sounds like a really smart way to go about this work. Awesome. So I try to put that in there. I try to take notes on some of these things. So what we have, and if I go back to the presentation, what we have is, and Krista, we didn't do, yeah, Krista, you guys still got to go. So Krista, you did the current events template.
I did.
Yeah.
So you saw, I mean, we walked through on ChatGPT some of it. I would definitely, and I didn't have the time in this session to go through, and I think that's one of the big things is you can't just take it for face value. You got to go through and make sure that it works for your students. But I did go ahead and put bookmarks in because a couple of the things that I hadn't done on the ChatGPT demo was the assessment. So if you click on assessment, you can go down to the rubric. And then I also asked it for another assessment, and it did a reflective essay assignment because I figure if this is something that they're going to be doing multiple times, this is the same template, then they're probably going to want to try some different assessment types. But then if you keep scrolling down, you'll see I also did an options for presenting current event findings because it had them presenting it in small groups. But I thought if this is, again, something that happens in every unit, you're going to want options for how the kids are sharing this information. They're not going to want to do the same thing every unit. So it did really well. And this, I haven't gone through all the way, but I'm seeing a lot of things that are things that we have in our district, like Canva and pieces like that. And I think it really helps you get out of that. It gives the kids some choice, like Nancy, you were talking about the choice board. I think you could give them some choice, definitely. But I mean, Nancy, you said this is fun. And I thought like in a nerdy way, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday here when I would normally be home into a first glass of wine. And I'm actually really enjoying this and thinking about our teachers who talk about time. Like, I don't have time all the time. I don't have time. And I think the power of having something like this, that especially if they have lesson plans digitally, take it, put it into this, and then adapt it for the kids sitting in front of you. And it doesn't take a lot. I mean, it's seconds. So, I mean, it is really exciting. And just when you think here I am thinking like I'm a really decent user of AI and I've learned so much just from everyone in this session. So that's something else on my radar is we have to keep people talking because, there's a wealth of information from everyone.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed just before we wrap up is this is the first time I've seen chat for give me 2 responses side by side, and it's asking me which one I like better. So that's interesting to me. I haven't seen that feature before.
Nancy, that happened to me twice so far, but it doesn't happen every time.
Right.
So I haven't looked it up, but I think it might be based on what you're asking. If it feels like,
Gotcha.
I don't know. It's worth looking into though, but that did happen to me and it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah. So we are pretty much right at time. And I want to thank everybody jumping on this call because I learned so much from everybody here. The whole goal of this presentation was to get some people in the room that just wanted to try to put as much, pen to paper or digital pen to paper as possible and to learn from that experience. And I couldn't think of a better group of people to spend a 4 o'clock on a Friday with. If you're West Coast, I guess more in the middle of the day, but yeah, kudos to everybody who joined us. So this folder is available to you. I'll keep it open and you can always pull stuff from it. So even if you don't plan on offering a full course, you could always pull a unit or an idea or activity from any of these things. I'll leave it available to everybody. And you can always reach out to Krista or I. And I think Krista and I are already kind of brainstorming some ways to do this with our teachers. So we appreciate everybody letting us learn from you.